It was 3 a.m. The world was silent. The moon was high in the sky, and cold wind touched the trees. Jake was sitting alone in his small wooden cabin near the forest. He was a quiet man, around 35 years old, a retired soldier, strong but tired. His life was peaceful but empty. Every night, he sat on his old couch, drinking black coffee and listening to the wind. But that night, something was different. Knock, knock. He stood up quickly. No one ever came here, especially not at 3 a.m. He picked up his flashlight and walked slowly to the front door. His heart beat a little faster. Knock, knock. He opened the door. There was no one. Only the sound of trees moving in the wind. He stepped outside and pointed the flashlight around. Then he looked down. On his doorstep was a small bundle, wrapped in a strange silver blanket. Something inside was moving, and then it cried, a baby. But not a normal baby. Its skin was light gray, almost silver. Its eyes were big, shiny, and glowing a soft blue color. It had no hair, and its hands had only 3 fingers. Jake froze. He had seen many strange things in war, but nothing like this. The baby kept crying, louder and louder. It was hungry, cold, and afraid. Then he heard a soft sound from the trees. A shadow moved between the branches. He turned his flashlight quickly. There, standing just behind a tree, was a tall figure, thin, weak, shaking. It stepped forward slowly. The light showed her face, not human, not fully, but not scary either. She had the same silver skin as the baby. Her eyes were full of fear and pain. She held her side like she was hurt. Blood, or something like it, was dripping from her arm. Jake didn't move. She raised one hand slowly, carefully, and said one word, help. Jake felt something strange in his chest. He didn't know why, but he understood. She was a mother, hurt, scared, and trying to protect her child. He picked up the baby gently and nodded to the alien woman. Come inside, he said. She followed him inside slowly, walking like she might fall at any moment. He placed the baby on a soft blanket on the couch. It stopped crying and looked at him with its big glowing eyes. The mother sat down on the floor, tired and shaking. She looked at her child, and a small tear rolled down her silver cheek. Jake quickly made a small bowl of warm soup. The alien mother smelled it, confused, but took small sips. Her hands were shaking, but her eyes said thank you. He didn't ask questions, not yet. Later, he brought a first aid box and pointed to her arm. She looked nervous, but let him help. The wound was deep, but not like any human wound. Her blood was light green, and the skin healed faster than he expected. Jake sat down on a chair across the room, watching them. What are you? He whispered. The baby was now asleep, making small soft sounds. The mother pulled a small metal device from her pocket. She touched it, and a glowing image appeared in the air. It showed a planet, broken and burning. Then, a spaceship flying away. Then, the same baby, glowing brighter than before. She touched her chest, then pointed at the baby. Jake understood a little. They were running, hiding. The baby was important, special, maybe the last of their kind. Then she pointed outside, into the forest. Jake looked out the window. The forest was dark, but he had a strange feeling, like something else was out there, watching. He stood up, grabbed his old rifle from under the table, and pointed his flashlight outside again. The trees moved with the wind, but one shadow didn't move. It was still tall, and had glowing red eyes. Jake's heart beat faster. He slowly closed the door and locked it. He turned to the mother. She was holding the baby tightly, fear on her face again. You're not safe here, Jake said, almost to himself, but he had made a choice already. I'll protect you. Outside, in the forest, the red eyes blinked once, then disappeared into the dark. But Jake knew they would come back. He just didn't know when. The wind was louder the next morning. Jake hadn't slept all night. He sat by the window with his old rifle across his lap, watching the forest. Like a guard dog, his eyes were tired, but alert. Inside the cabin, The alien baby slept quietly, glowing with a soft blue light. The mother sat near the corner, still weak, her silver skin dim in the early morning sun. Jake's coffee had gone cold, but he didn't care. His mind was full of questions. Who were they? Why did they come to him? And most of all, was something coming for them? He turned to the alien mother. She looked back at him, her eyes calm but full of fear. He pointed to himself, then to the baby. "Why here?" he asked slowly. She didn't answer with words. Instead, she reached into a small pouch and pulled out a tiny, round object, glowing like a marble. She placed it on the table. The light from it expanded into the air, creating a floating image. Jake leaned in, surprised. It showed Earth from space, marked with tiny red dots. He counted. One of the red dots blinked right over his cabin. "Tracked," Jake whispered. "You're being tracked." The mother nodded slowly, her hands shaking as she took back the device and crushed it under her palm. Jake stood up, breathing heavily. "This place isn't safe anymore," he said, mostly to himself. He walked over to the closet, opened a hidden panel behind the coats, and revealed a metal door. It was old, dusty, and had not been opened in years. The bunker, built during his army days, just in case the world ended. He never thought he'd need it for something like this. He looked at the alien woman and pointed to the door. "You stay here," he said. "You'll be safe underground." The mother hesitated, but followed him, carrying the baby in her arms. The bunker was small but strong. Metal walls, canned food, blankets, and tools. Enough for 2 people to live quietly for months. Jake helped her get inside and covered the entrance again. No one would find them easily. When he came back up, he stepped outside. He needed air, needed to think. The forest was too quiet. Even the birds were silent. Then he heard it. A soft buzz, like an insect, but deeper. He looked up. A black drone hovered in the sky, almost invisible. Its red light blinked once, twice, then flew away. Jake's jaw tightened. "They know," he muttered. He ran back inside and locked the door. Then, he turned on the radio scanner, an old one from his army days, static at first, then a voice. "Unidentified signal confirmed. Target location, Grid 7C. Prepare to move." Jake's cabin was Grid 7C. He turned the radio off. His fingers curled into fists. He had a choice now. Call the government and hand them over, or protect them and become a target himself. He looked down at the floor, where the hidden door to the bunker was. He could still hear the baby breathing softly below. He remembered something. Long ago, during war, he had once rescued a child from a burning village. He had no orders to do it, but he did it anyway, because it was right. Jake made his decision. He wasn't going to run. He wasn't going to hand them over. He would protect them, no matter what. Later that night, he brought food down to the bunker. Warm soup for the mother, soft bread soaked in milk for the baby. The mother looked at him with wide, thankful eyes. She reached into her pouch again and took out a small metal square. She tapped it once, and a glowing image appeared. This time, a creature, tall, dark, sharp claws, red glowing eyes. It looked like a hunter. Jake shivered. She pointed to the image, then to the forest above. "They're coming," he said quietly. She nodded once. Suddenly, the baby began to glow brightly, its chest pulsing with soft white light. It reached its hand toward Jake, a small cut on his wrist, from earlier, closed by itself. Jake stared in disbelief. "You healed me," he whispered. The mother smiled, her face soft, tired, but full of something new, hope. Jake stood up. "If they're coming," he said, "we need to be ready." He turned off all lights, covered the windows, and prepared the cabin like a fortress. Outside, in the deep forest, something moved between the trees, watching, waiting, and it was getting closer. The baby was glowing again. It was midnight. The bunker was quiet, cold, and dark, but the baby's body lit up the room like a small moon. Jake sat in the corner, watching. His hands were shaking just a little, not from fear, but from something deeper, something he could not explain. He had seen death, war, monsters, but nothing like this. The baby wasn't just strange. It was impossible. Jake leaned closer, trying not to wake the alien mother. She was asleep now, curled up near the wall with her arms wrapped tightly around her knees. The baby opened its eyes. They were bright blue, shining softly, but this time the baby didn't cry. It just looked at Jake. Then it reached out one small hand. Jake hesitated. Then slowly he touched its fingers. A flash, not a light. A memory. Jake saw a burning city, not Earth. A sky full of red fire, ships flying in chaos, and then the baby, crying in a glass pod, while the alien mother screamed, reaching for it. The vision ended in seconds. Jake pulled back, his heart racing. "What was that?" he whispered. "Did you show me that?" The baby blinked, like it understood Jake. Didn't know how, but the baby had just shared its memory. He sat back, breathing hard. This wasn't just an alien child. This baby had a connection. To him, to something bigger. The next morning, Jake opened the mother's bag. Carefully, he wasn't trying to steal, just understand inside. He found something strange, a glowing cube. It hummed softly, like it was alive, when he touched it. The cube floated in the air and showed another image, the same baby, but older, surrounded by others, both human and alien, people kneeling, touching the ground in respect. The cube showed symbols, moving fast. Jake didn't understand the language, but one word flashed again and again. Hybrid. He looked down at the sleeping child. Half alien, he whispered, half human. That's why the baby looked different. That's why it healed him. That's why it shared memories. This child wasn't just running from danger. This child was the future. Jake placed the cube back carefully and looked at the alien mother. She was awake now, watching him, her eyes calm, but serious. She had known this moment would come, the moment he would learn the truth. Jake stood and nodded. "I understand now." He said she didn't speak, but she didn't have to. Her eyes said everything. Suddenly, a loud click echoed from above. Jake froze footsteps. He ran up the bunker stairs silently and peered through a crack in the floor. Two men in black suits were in his cabin. One held a strange device, scanning the room. Signal was strong here. One man said, "They were close. They're hiding." The other replied, "We'll search the area." Jake stayed still, breath held, heart pounding. After a few minutes the men left, but Jake knew they would be back. He went back down and looked at the mother. "We have to move soon," he said, but she pointed to the baby and shook her head. "Too weak, too soon." Jake paced the bunker, thinking. They needed a way to escape, but not just escape. They needed to hide from something smarter than humans. He remembered something, a hidden cave deep in the forest, a place no one ever visited, too far for roads too, dark for drones. He used to go there alone after the war, to clear his mind. Maybe it could work. Jake looked at the baby again. It was now awake and watching him, eyes glowing gently. "You're not just a baby," he said quietly. "You're something special." The baby made a soft sound, almost like a laugh. And then it did something new. It reached toward the metal wall of the bunker, and the metal bent slightly. Jake's eyes widened. "You can control metal," he whispered. "You're evolving." The baby looked back at him, silent but knowing. Outside, the wind picked up. But it wasn't just wind. It was something flying, something searching, and getting closer. Jake grabbed his backpack, filled it with food, tools, and blankets. "We leave tonight," he said. "Before they find you." The mother nodded and held the baby close. Jake opened the secret exit tunnel that led to the forest. A cold breeze came in, carrying the scent of trees and rain. They stepped out into the darkness, not just to run, but to protect something far more important than they could explain. The baby looked back once, small hand glowing in the night. Then they disappeared into the woods as a red light flashed in the sky behind them. Asterisk. The man in the black suit didn't knock. He simply stood outside the cabin, silent as a shadow, watching the door like a statue. His partner walked slowly behind him, holding a scanning device that blinked with blue lights. The forest around them was silent. Even the animals had vanished. Heat signature detected. The man whispered, "But it's fading." They looked at each other, then moved toward the house. But they were too late. Jake was already deep in the forest, walking through the mud with careful steps. The alien mother followed close behind, carrying her baby wrapped in the silver blanket. The baby's glow was hidden now, covered with layers of dark cloth. It made soft sounds, like humming, but didn't cry. Jake had taught it to stay quiet. He had learned something in war. If you want to survive, you don't run fast, you move. Smart, and tonight, he was moving like a ghost. The rain had just stopped, and fog rolled over the ground like slow smoke. Trees stood like giant towers around them, watching, protecting. They reached the old cave just before sunrise. Hidden behind fallen trees and moss-covered rocks, Jake stepped inside first, flashlight in hand. The cave smelled like wet earth and old stone, but it was safe. For now they made a small fire, just enough to warm their hands. The alien mother sat close to the baby, feeding it a soft liquid from a silver bottle. The baby drank quietly, then fell asleep, breathing slow and calm. Jake looked at them and felt something strange again. Not fear, not duty. Something deeper. Something like family, but outside, something was changing. The two men in black were not ordinary agents. They didn't carry normal weapons. They didn't ask questions. They followed orders from something higher, something not human. As they searched Jake's empty cabin, one of them found a small mark carved into the wood floor. A symbol. Not human. The taller agent touched it, and his device blinked red. "They left recently," he said. "And the child is still alive." The other agent smiled. But it wasn't a kind smile. It was cold and sharp. "They always run," he said. "But they never get far." Back in the cave, Jake was laying tripwire alarms and motion sensors outside. He didn't trust luck anymore, only preparation. When he returned, he found the alien mother drawing something on the cave wall with a sharp rock, a star map. Jake recognized the shapes. Earth, the moon, then another system far away. The alien mother pointed at the stars, then at the baby. Jake understood. "This baby is meant to leave Earth," he said. "It's not just hiding here." She nodded slowly, then added a final symbol, a black hand reaching down from above. Not a warning, a threat. Jake's eyes narrowed. Someone or something was coming. Not to rescue them, but to take the baby. That night, Jake stayed awake, sitting at the cave entrance with his rifle resting on his lap. Around midnight, he heard it crunch, a single step on the forest floor. He stood up silently, eyes scanning the dark. Another crunch. Closer this time, he switched off the small fire, blending into the shadows. Then, a voice, soft but clear. "Jake." Mason, his name, spoken by a stranger in the woods. Jake didn't answer. He raised the rifle and waited. "We know what you're hiding," the voice said. "And we're not here to hurt you." Another lie. Jake had heard those words in war, just before bombs fell. He slowly backed into the cave and sealed the entrance with heavy stones. He turned to the mother, whispering, "They found us." She held the baby close, eyes wide with fear. Jake pulled a hidden bag from the wall. Inside was a tiny black box, no bigger than a match, alien tech. The mother had given it to him 2 days ago, but warned, only if there's no choice. Jake hesitated, then pressed the center of the device. A silent pulse spread through the cave, invisible to humans. But somewhere, far above Earth's orbit, something received the signal. A reply blinked. On the box, green light. The alien mother looked at him with shock. Then relief. Help was coming, maybe, but until then, Jake would fight. He picked up his rifle, checked the bullets, and looked at the sleeping baby. "You're not just their future," he whispered. "You're ours too." Outside, shadows moved through the trees, faster now. The visitors were no longer just looking, they were closing in. The stars above Earth blinked like eyes, but one of them wasn't a star. It moved, slowly, silently. Watching from orbit, a black ship, hidden to human satellites, its surface absorbing all light, waiting for a signal, and now it had received. 1. Inside the cave below, Jake stood beside the alien mother, staring at the small black box that had just blinked green. Help was on the way, but help could take days, maybe weeks. They didn't have that long. Outside, the forest was alive with movement. Drones hovered like wasps, scanning trees. Agents in black searched every rock, every hollow. Jake knew they were getting closer every hour. He couldn't wait. He needed a real plan and escape. He pulled out a folded paper map of the area, old, torn, but still useful. His finger moved to a marked point near the mountains, an abandoned satellite relay station, fenced off for years, no guards, no power, but maybe parts. Alien parts were still inside the mother's damaged ship, hidden in the deep woods, but it couldn't fly. One small piece was broken, a stabilizer coil. Without it, the ship wouldn't survive 10 seconds in the air. Jake believed the satellite station had something he could use to replace it. Maybe not perfect, but good enough. The mother understood. She reached into her bag and gave him a metal ring, glowing with soft white light, a tracker. He could find the exact location of her ship using it. Jake loaded his backpack with tools, food, and his last box of bullets. He looked at the sleeping baby one last time, then turned to the mother. "Keep him safe," he said. "I'll be back before sunset." He left the cave before dawn, moving like a shadow through the cold mist. The forest didn't feel like Earth anymore. It felt like something else, like the world was changing. He reached the buried ship before noon, hidden under leaves and broken branches. The ship looked more like a rock than a machine, but the tracker lit up green, and the small door on the side opened with a soft hiss. Inside, the ship was dark, full of strange panels and blinking lights. Jake moved carefully, searching for the broken coil. He found it in the rear engine bay, burned and cracked. He took it out gently, holding it like it was gold. Then he started the hard part, reaching the satellite station, miles away, with patrols nearby. He followed an old river path, using mud to hide his scent. Drones flew overhead, but he stayed under tree cover. By late afternoon, he reached the old station. Fenced off, broken windows, and silence. Perfect. He climbed through a cracked wall and began searching the dusty machines. He found old transmitters, batteries, and finally, a coil, not the same as the alien one, but close enough in shape and size. He took it, but as he stepped back toward the door, he froze. Voices, 2 agents, standing outside the fence, talking through radios. Jake dropped to the ground and crawled into a storage room. Heart pounding. "We tracked him this far," one voice said. "He's trying to fix the ship." Jake gritted his teeth. They knew. They were too close now. He waited until the voices faded, then slipped out through the back and vanished into the trees again. The sun was dropping fast, turning the forest gold and red. Jake moved faster, legs burning. Every second mattered. When he returned to the cave, the fire was out, but the baby was safe, sleeping in its mother's arms. Jake showed the part, and the mother touched it. Testing its energy, she gave a slow, surprised nod. It would work. They had a chance, that night, under the stars. Jake and the mother carried pieces of the broken ship to a clearing deep in the woods, a place flat enough for takeoff. They worked through the night, silent and focused. Every wire, every bolt, every seal had to be perfect. The baby watched from a safe place, its eyes glowing brighter than ever. Around midnight, the ship hummed with power. Its engines blinked, its walls lit up with life. But there was a problem. Jake checked the fuel gauge. Only enough for one strong jump. The ship could take 2 passengers, maybe 3 if they were small. But fuel would run out before a second trip. One way, one chance. Jake looked at the baby, then at the mother, and then at the stars above. He felt something cold inside his chest. He had saved them. But could he let them go without him? The baby crawled toward him and placed a glowing hand on Jake's knee. And for a moment, everything stopped. Jake saw another vision, not of war, not of fire but peace, a green world full of light. A city built by both humans and aliens, and the baby, grown up, standing in the center. A bridge between two species. The vision faded. Jake took a breath, slow and deep. They had to leave. Even if he stayed behind, suddenly, a flash of red light lit. The trees nearby, a drone had found them. Jake grabbed his rifle. Heart racing. It's now, he said, or never. The night was no longer quiet. It was full of red light, sirens, and shadows that moved too fast. Jake ran through the forest like a hunted animal, branches cutting his arms, sweat pouring down his face. Behind him, drones zipped through the air, scanning, blinking, searching. But he wasn't running away. He was running toward danger. The satellite station hadn't been enough. They needed one more part, the fuel crystal, and it existed in only one place. The nearby military base, a place Jake once called home, now full of people who would shoot him on sight. It wasn't just guarded. It was locked down by some of the smartest machines on Earth. But Jake had no choice. The ship was ready, the alien. Mother and baby were waiting. The window for launch was short, one shot if he failed. They would all be captured, or worse. He crouched near the edge of a hill, watching the base through a pair of cracked binoculars. 3 watchtowers, spotlights, motion sensors, patrols every 6 minutes. He remembered the base like it was yesterday. He trained here, fought here, lost friends here. Now he was about to break in. He moved fast and low, crawling through tall grass and slipping into a storm drain under the fence. Inside, everything smelled like oil and metal and rain. He stayed in the shadows, avoiding cameras, timing his steps with the guard rotations. The fuel crystal was kept in the lower lab. Room A12. He remembered it because it used to be off limits even for him. But Jake wasn't following orders anymore. He reached the back door of the lab. It had a fingerprint scanner. Jake took a deep breath, pulled out a silver tool the alien mother had given him, and pressed it against the lock. The device blinked once, twice, then melted the lock from the inside. Jake stepped into the lab. The room glowed blue, full of cold light and humming machines. And there it was, inside a glass case, the crystal, floating above a magnetic pad, bright as a star. He moved to grab it, but a loud beep echoed across the room. Jake's eyes widened. Security trigger. The door slammed shut behind him, red lights flashing. Warning, breach detected. A robotic voice said. Jake smashed the glass with his rifle, grabbed the crystal, and looked for a way out. No doors, no windows, just walls and steel. Then he saw it. A ceiling vent. Too small for most, but just enough for someone like him. He climbed fast, every muscle in his body screaming. The crystal tied tightly to his chest. Above him, footsteps. Below him, alarms. He pushed through the vent and dropped into a dark hallway. A guard saw him, shouted, raised his gun. Jake didn't shoot. He just ran, faster than fear. He smashed through the back exit, dove over the fence, and vanished into the woods again. Bullets missed him by inches, sparks flying, trees shaking. But Jake didn't stop. Not until the lights were far behind and the stars were above him again. When he finally reached the hidden clearing, the ship was waiting, humming softly, glowing like it knew the time had come. The alien mother ran to him, eyes full of shock and relief. He dropped to his knees, holding out the crystal. "It's done," he said, breathing hard. "It's ready." She took the crystal and placed it inside a small chamber under the ship's core. The ship came alive, lights blinking, engines warming. The baby crawled into Jake's arms, smiling, glowing brighter than ever before. Jake held him tightly, heart full of pain and pride. But then, the sound of helicopters in the distance, drones in the sky, ground units moving fast. Jake looked at the mother. "You have to go now," he said. "There's no more time." She looked at him, her eyes full of conflict, full of gratitude. He stepped back, watching as the ramp closed. The engines roared. Bright blue fire lit up the forest. The baby reached out through the glass window. One small hand pressed to the surface. Jake pressed his hand back, a tear sliding down his cheek. And then the ship launched, straight into the night sky. Past the clouds, past the danger. Gone. Jake stood in the clearing, silent, rifle in hand. Surrounded by firelight and echoing noise, behind him, black-suited men stepped from the shadows. Guns raised. He didn't run this time. He looked up at the stars and smiled. "They're safe," he said. "You're too late." The men shouted. The wind howled. The sky was empty, but far above Earth, a small ship carried a secret that could save two worlds, and behind it, a man stood tall, not because he had powers, not because he was chosen, but because he made a choice to protect, to sacrifice, to be human. The stars were no longer dots in the sky. They were windows, windows to new worlds, new chances, new homes. The small alien ship floated through deep space, quiet, glowing gently like a lantern in a dark sea. Inside, the alien mother sat near the front window, holding her child close, the baby no longer crying, no longer afraid, looked out at the stars with wide glowing eyes. Behind them, Earth was just a memory, a blue circle fading into the dark. But inside the baby's heart, something human remained, a face, a name, Jake. Back on Earth, he had stood. Alone in the firelight, soldiers surrounding him, drones flashing, weapons raised. But Jake didn't kneel, didn't run. He smiled. He had already won. The soldiers found nothing, no ship, no baby, no alien mother. Just a man who refused to give up his secret, and they never broke him. They never got the truth, because Jake had buried the truth in the stars. Now years later, the alien baby had grown. He walked beside his mother on a peaceful green planet with tall white trees and skies that shimmered like water. It was not Earth, not her home either, but it was safe, and it had become theirs. The boy, now stronger, taller, wiser, had both his mother's silver skin and Jake's bold eyes. He was different, but proud of it. He often sat by a small hill, overlooking the valley, where he kept a strange old box. Inside it was a photo, scratched but still clear. Jake, smiling in front of his cabin, holding a fishing rod and a mug of coffee. Next to it, a folded map, marked with red ink, showing a trail from a cabin to a hidden cave, and one last item, a small black military dog tag. J. Mason, it read. The boy wore it like a necklace, never taking it off. One day, the alien mother joined him on the hill. She sat beside him, her face calm, her body now older. The boy looked at the sky, and then at the photo. "Do you think?" "He knew," he asked, his voice quiet. She looked at him and nodded slowly. "He knew everything," she said, and Jake had known he would never see this planet, never hear the child speak, never walk through a world built by two species together. But he had seen something more important. He had seen hope, back in the boy's home. There was a wall of hand-drawn art, showing stories his mother told him. One picture showed a wooden cabin in the forest. One showed a man standing in front of fire, rifle in hand. One showed a spaceship launching through trees, watched by a child's glowing eyes, and above all of it, written in simple letters, was a phrase: "Sometimes the most alien thing in the universe is kindness." That kindness had started a new future. The green planet grew stronger each year, new homes, new families, both alien and human, working together, building together. They called it Haven. The boy, now a young man, became a leader. Not because he wanted power, but because he carried a story no one else had. He had come from war, from hiding, from fear. But he had been saved by a man who asked for nothing in return. The people of Haven didn't forget that. They didn't build statues. They planted trees. Each one had a small tag with the name of someone who helped build peace. One tree stood taller than the rest, its roots deep, its leaves silver and green. Under it, A single name. Jake Mason, human. The wind moved through the branches gently, almost like it was whispering. The boy sat by the tree one last time before leaving on his own journey. He stood up, looking at the stars above, and somewhere, out there, in the quiet sky, something unseen moved. Maybe it was just a falling star. Or maybe it was Jake, watching, smiling, knowing the future was safe. Thanks to a choice made in the middle of a forest, at 3 a.m.